In this video, we're going to pick up where we left off. We have our basic UI for tip calculator, but there's still work to do. So this time what I want to do is go ahead and clean up the errors over here. And what most of these errors are actually around strings. What Android's complaining about is that we've hard-coded text into the fields themselves. And that's just, it's bad practice. What happens, a couple different things. One, usually in larger apps, you're going to find that you need to use the same text in multiple places. So if you've hard-coded text all over your app, if you need to make a change to it, you got to go all over the place to update it. An even bigger problem is that if we want to support a foreign language, say we want to support French and German and Spanish in this app, you don't really have a way to do that unless you've defined everything in a strings file. And if you've defined everything in a strings file, then you're able to change it out for different languages. So let's take a look at how that works. So right here we got enter amount. So to create a string entry for this, we go back to our project and we go to resources, values, strings. So there's strings.xml. Let's open that up. Here's where you'll keep all the strings for your app, at least the English versions. To create a new string entry, it's an XML entry string, name equals, and then you want to give it some kind of tag, something that makes sense. So maybe I call this label enter amount. It just has to be something that makes sense to you, because you're only going to use this inside your application. The user would never see it. So in this case, I've given it a name that makes it very clear. It's a label, and it's for when I want to label something to enter amount. And I've got enter amount. With that done, I can come back over into here. I can select enter amount, and then instead of having the hard-coded text, I go to the little oval on the side. It brings up my strings attribute, and I select label enter amount and say OK. Now see here it says @string/label enter amount, and it doesn't look like this has done anything, but actually it's now pulling the value from the strings file. You'll see our warning went away. So let's do the same thing. We'll do two more on calculate and tip amount. So in this case, I'll do calculate, which is a button, so I'm going to call it button calculate. And we'll make calculate, and while we're here, let's go and create the other one. Label, what was it, tip amount. And just make it, well, actually that's good. Let's stop right there. We'll change it here in a minute. So save those, and now I can come back over, and we'll change calculate. Instead of calculate, it will be button calculate, which I spelled wrong, but that's okay. And tip amount, we'll change it to the label tip amount. And now anytime I make a change to it, it will update. So for example, if I want, let's say we don't want to be calculate, we want to be compute. I can just come in here and change it to compute, and now you'll see it updates to compute. So it's really handy. It's something you're going to want to do because you're going to get warnings, and I don't really like to see warnings in your projects. So my expectation is that you will go through and fix all the warnings, and the warnings pretty much always will just be making you do what you should have done in the first place. We've got one left to get rid of. This one's a little bit more complicated. Edit text number. So if we hover over here, it says missing autofill hint attribute. So the autofill attribute is, scroll down here, where's it at? Autofill hints. And it says you don't have a value here. Well, the question should be, well, what on earth is this? So there is a autofill framework built into Android as of, I don't know, it's been there a while, version 7, 8, 9, something like that. They added it in. And what it will allow you to do is your phone has information about you, like your address, your phone number, things like that. So if you go through here and put in an autofill hint, the user can just select things out of, right off the keyboard, right? It'll give you, here's your first name, here's your last name, here's your phone number. You can just tap them. You guys have probably all seen that. If you're an iOS user, there's some very similar features. So this is where you would go in and say, here's the kind of data that you would expect for autofill. Well, we're probably, I don't know, again, there's, who knows what we'll get into the latter part of this class, but certainly this doesn't come into play for the beginning part of the course. So we're not going to have an autofill, but we got this warning. So how do we get rid of it? Well, if you scroll down, there's a little property called important. If I can find it, important for autofill, and you just say, no, it's not. It's that easy. And so now that warning, now we got a different warning, but that's how you clear it up. If you do, just so that you know, you'll have to Google and look up on Google's site, and they've got a whole bunch of constants that you can use for autofill. Although on the simulator, it's usually not that exciting because the simulator doesn't have a bunch of information about you, so autofill doesn't really do much. But in real apps, it's pretty handy. But again, a little bit more advanced UI stuff. It's not complicated, just not something you would use until you're kind of further in your Android career. So let's go look and see what other we have here. Oh, come on, pop up. There he goes. Missing accessibility label. Okay, so what this is saying is you've got this, we've got an input field on the screen, but the screen reader for accessibility doesn't know what this is. So what would happen, so for a screen reader, if you're not familiar with it, this is for people that have some kind of vision impairment and they can't read the screen, but they still use mobile phones. So, all mobile phone makers these days have built in a lot of features. Android certainly is one of them. They've built in a lot of features for accessibility, so that if you could be completely blind and you can use the phone just fine. And if you've never seen it, it's really neat, the speed that blind people are able to use their phone. So I can't really give you an example on Android, but on Apple, on iPhones, I don't know if he still works there or not, but there used to be a gentleman that worked at the Apple store here at the Polaris Mall, and he's blind. And he's using his phone all the time, and you could see, because it's noisy, he'll hold the phone up real close to his face where you can hear it. But you can see him hear it, and you can see him swiping with his fingers. And what's happening is he's getting the screen reader to jump from field to field. And when the screen reader gets to each field, it has to give you a verbal cue of what's going on the screen. So what would happen on this app is it would start off, it would have this highlighted, and the screen reader would say enter amount. On here it'd say compute. On here it would say tip amount. Here, what's it going to say? Well, it's blank. But you have to be able to tell the user, what is this, right? So the way we do that is with a hint. So if we go down here to, let's select it first. So we go down here to hint, and you enter hint text. So what I'm going to suggest is that the hint text would be the same thing as this label, the same text. So rather than put enter amount, I can go through here and select the same label, enter amount. So now you get the visual cue, enter amount, but potentially even more importantly for the screen reader, it now has something to say. So when you get to this, it will let you know that you're on an input field and it's for entering an amount. So pretty important to do. Now, what you'll see a lot of apps these days do is they'll have a hint text here and they won't bother labeling the field. The hint text will be the field label. I only did this just so that we could put more on the screen. So there you go. And I'll tell you what, how long is this video? Okay, we're at 8 minutes, so almost 9 minutes. So I'm going to stop the video here. We've got more to do. I'm going to pick up in the next video.